Today I'm going to talk to you a little bit about that involvement with the Boston Marathon bombing and the shootout in Watertown, but I'm going to focus on the time afterwards and a concept I call SPAR, survival through preparation, adaptability, and resilience, and how it's helped me and helped the people around me recover since the near-fatal injury that I sustained. I actually recall back the week of April 15, 2013, about a day or two before I was in this building, I was actually watching a band right here. I lived across the highway in Woburn, and it was just such a different time. I had some friends in town from college, one of whom was running the marathon, the other one was just there to cause trouble, get me in trouble with my wife, go out late to Red Sox games, and that sort of thing. So things were so normal back then, so normal. We had a great weekend. And I remember a couple things I'll share with you about the morning of April 15th, 2013. I dropped my friend Catherine off to get the bus to Hopkinton to run the race, and I went to Transit Police Headquarters, and I was getting ready, and I remember it was a nice day. Man, it was so much better than that hot day we had in 2012. We were going to get through the day. It was going to be an easy detail, put a little bit of extra cash in our pockets. And I said to a buddy of mine, I said, "Do we need to wear our bulletproof vests today?" Nothing happens. We want to be comfortable. Nothing happens on Marathon Monday. And our second major concern that day was, where are we going to eat lunch? That's what police officers think about. We think about getting home, getting paid, and getting something to eat. That's the truth. Day in and day out. You know, above and beyond doing what we do in our job. But that's when things were so normal. And later that day, hear the radio call, and I'll talk a few times about the radio calls and the things you remember. And I remember hearing on the radio about the first explosion. I was like, whoa, hold on a second. That's probably some idiot with fireworks. And then the second one. And then there are fatalities and multiple injuries. And then, wow, things really got serious. It really mattered for us to do our jobs. And it became a long, somewhat frustrating week. And I didn't think I'd be tied in with that situation just 3 days later. I was patrolling downtown Boston as I had done for a couple of years at that point, and I heard a call over the radio that there was an officer down in Cambridge, specifically at the MIT campus, and I had a friend working there at the time, a guy who was at my wedding, a guy who went to the police academy with me, and somebody who lived right down the street with me when I lived in Somerville. And I got over there, I found out that MIT police officer Sean Collier had been killed in the line of duty. I probably thought then that this was as close as things were going to get for me. And I think I had the choice then as well. Do I call it a day? Do I kind of sulk? Do I take time to mourn and reflect then and there? And the decision was no. We don't. We step up. And I use the term we because it was all the other officers that were there, all the other agencies. It was, we'll think about that later, but right now it's time to fulfill our duties and fulfill our oath and do our job. So I made the decision to partner up with another transit police officer, and we went on the hunt. You know, we probably thought that these guys, the suspect or suspects, had been gone. They would have taken off. We passed by some of the other scenes where there was a carjacking. We listened to the radio for additional information, just looking out for anything that would happen, anything weird, any suspects, or kind of what you do when you're a police officer. Just looking for people doing the wrong thing, looking for suspects, listening for information. And then, shortly before 1 a.m. on April 19th now, there was a radio call from Watertown police, and they were requesting assistance. They were being fired upon. And there was no way, just being a couple miles away, just outside Harvard Square, that my partner and I were going to let other police officers die in the line of duty that night. So we did what we were trained to do, and that was respond to back up our fellow officers and do anything and everything we could. And it was a chaotic scene when we arrived there. You've probably seen some of the videos or heard some of the audio of the explosions and gunfire coming from all directions. We tried to get around to get as close as we could to our fellow officers from Watertown, but it was in vain. We couldn't get any closer. And at one point during the huge exchange of gunfire, when I was pinned down in our position, I was struck by a bullet in my right femoral artery. And luckily, my partner rushed to my aid immediately. He tackled me, pulled me to safety, got the assistance of other officers, and they started the CPR. You heard about it. They started CPR right away. They ripped off my vest, reached inside to my leg to try to stop the bleeding, and they made the decision to get me in an ambulance and get me out of there because I was within seconds of dying. And when I was brought to Mount Auburn Hospital, which, if you know it, is a small community hospital. It's not your MGH or your Boston Medical Center or the places that are used to taking gunshot wounds or have major trauma centers. But I was taken there, and thank God I was, because it saved my life. That decision alone saved my life because I was within seconds of dying. And when I got in there, the doctor who attended to me, Dr. Studley, she thought to herself, and actually said it in court, that I was essentially dead when I was brought in there. I was essentially dead. However, probably thanks to the quick thinking there, the great work by the medical staff, and a little bit of help from somebody above, that I pulled through. They gave me 6 to 8 hours of surgery. Don't quite have the timer on it. I was out for most of this part. I was given 46 units of blood transfused into me, over 40 minutes of CPR, and my body temperature was cooled. I was basically in a coma for a couple of days before I pulled through. And I had that 2% chance to live you heard about, that 2% chance to live. That's just to open my eyes again and see another day. But because of the folks around me and the people that saved my life, I've recovered most of the way. I can again be a good member of the community, a father, a son, a brother. And because of them, I beat those odds. But what I really realized was when I woke up and I was faced with this new situation, that's where the next round of challenges came through. That's where I was faced with so many different things, and I wasn't ready for them. I was a police officer. But I realized I had some tools and the people around me to help me survive and really thrive in this situation and with the situation I was given. So first I'm going to talk about preparation. The preparation of other people clearly saved my life. At the police academy, we deal with firearms training and first aid and training under very stressful situations. And that's what the officers around me did. They had to change from a situation where they were almost getting killed themselves, where there were bullets flying past them and explosions going on. They had to holster their weapons and jump into their bag of tools. They had to change their training over from that and put those things they learned in the first aid classes. And a couple of them had been trained EMTs and paramedics. They had to put that training to work. Their preparation in the past and their ability to deal and cope with that stress of being in that situation helped keep me alive that night. Some of them were in the military as well. And these are things that, when you put them all together, helped save my life and helped make all of us go home safely that night, or 2 months later in my case. And the preparation of the medical staff as well. I mean, gosh, I know they spend a lot of money and a lot of time in medical school and training afterwards. And this hospital wasn't, they don't deal with gunshot wounds on a day-to-day basis. It doesn't happen from Mount Auburn Hospital. But the staff did their job. They stepped up, they used their training, they used the tools around them, and they knew when to call in for help. They knew that they'd have to call in extra doctors and specialists, and where to get me and what the timing was to keep me alive. And that preparation they had definitely helped me pull through. And then when I was faced with these new set of challenges, I had to look internally. I like to think of the events of the marathon week, and even as a police officer, to be somewhat mechanical. I was so trained to do that, and it was my job day in and day out, 40, 60, 80 hours a week. I knew what to do, or I'd figure it out. And I knew what I should do, and I always tried to do my best. But then faced with these new set of challenges, I had to think, what do I do now? And I recalled back to my time. I said, I was in the hospital and was talking with my brother and a friend of mine from college, and I said, you know what? This is tough. I'm in a lot of pain. I can barely get up and walk. But I have a little bit of experience I can reflect back on. And I said, yeah, being at the Virginia Military Institute some days, that was a lot worse than being in the hospital. You know, being yelled at all the time, getting in trouble for missing class or being 5 minutes late for class, and all the while participating in Division I sports and having a military commitment and doing other extracurricular activities in the Corps of Cadets. That gave me a background. That gave me something to reach into my tool bag and say, you know what? I'm sort of ready for this. I'm ready to take this challenge on.